Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. My name is Jay, and you're watching Clouded Reactions. So we just got done listening to Purple Heart. When they started talking about the dead, people that actually pass away fighting on behalf of us, the civilians, it always strikes a chord, man, because, it gets me upset that people will never know the people that passed away. They'll never know their story unless they're like this, they played a big role. And of course, people remember the main character. Nobody remembers the grunts. Don't remember the everyday soldier that's just going out there in the field. They're cannon fodder. Pretty much a meat grinder when it comes to wars. And that's what's so upsetting. The wars are so stupid. Things should be handled diplomatically as possible. Sometimes you just can't avoid war. But that's always should be the last option on the table. Anyways, shut up, Jay. Hop right on in.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Pat from Sabaton.
And this is Sabaton History. The Purple Heart is an American military decoration given to soldiers wounded or killed in service against the enemy.
And we really needed to find a new topic when we decided that Sabaton is all about war history. So we actually rewrote a song called Night Child into Purple Heart.
So since they're saying that they don't remember the lyrics to the song Night Child, they never wrote it down. They never had a pre-recording ever. We'll never know how that song went because not even the guys know how it went. That kind of sucks. Kind of like a lost tape sort of thing.
The Purple Heart is one of the most iconic, if not the most, military decorations the United States awards. These days it's awarded to those wounded or killed during their service in the U.S. military. And the purple heart-shaped badge signifies both sacrifice by and gratitude towards the soldier. Backed by charities and foundations, the decoration acknowledges those who gave their most during their service. This is quite a simple premise, but the story of the medal itself is not as straightforward as you might think.
Okay, so this is pretty much an origin story of how it came about, probably. Okay.
Outlined with bronze edges, the Purple Heart on the front shows the relief bust of George Washington in his uniform as General of the Continental Army, and on the reverse side bears the inscription, "For Military Merit." This is no mere gimmick, though, because the origins of the Purple Heart actually date all the way back to the American Revolutionary War in the 1770s and 1780s, when George Washington was that general.
Wonder how awkward it would have been at the time, giving out a medal with your face on it. That's like the gall, what's that word called, man? I'll stew on it.
Back in those days, as the 13 soon-to-be
I want to say conceited, but it's not that word either. I don't know. I'm gonna get off of this though.
Back in those days, as the 13 soon-to-be ex-British colonies were fighting for their independence, medals and awards were still usually reserved for generals and high officers, men who won decisive battles or captured a fort or a major city during their campaigns. That a non-commissioned officer or even a common soldier would receive a medal or some sort of federal recognition was pretty much unheard of. But the war for independence was also a war fought based on certain principles of theoretical equality. And fighting experienced and professional British redcoats was one thing, and a lot to be asked to do, but endless forced marches through swamps, storms, and winters had left the army demoralized, sick, and close to starvation. Legend has it that Washington wanted to give something back to the common men who endured all this for their cause. But the Continental Congress had little time to be bothered with such things. Eventually, in 1782, Washington officially introduced the Badge of Military Merit, a purple, heart-shaped piece of cloth outlined by a silver braid. The purple color, throughout history going back even beyond the Romans.
Does it stand for royalty? That's the one thing I know about the color purple. I think I learned that from my little sister. I don't know, because that's always been her favorite color. And I remember her telling me that the reason why she liked the color purple is because it stood for royalty. And before he says the meaning behind the color is, I'm kind of seeing a pharaoh or something, or people of high regard wearing the color purple. Or was it lilac? Or was it lavender? It's in the purple family. For sure.
By a silver braid. The purple color, throughout history going back even beyond the Romans associated with royalty or nobility, was supposed to highlight the contribution of the individual soldier and would visually stand out when it was worn on his uniform. Washington wrote, "The general, ever desirous to cherish a virtuous ambition in his soldiers, as well as to foster and encourage every species of military merit, directs that, whenever any singularly meritorious action is performed, the author of it shall be permitted to wear on his facings over the left breast the figure of a heart in purple cloth or silk, edged in narrow lace or bringing. Not only instances of unusual gallantry in battle, but also extraordinary fidelity and essential service in any way shall meet with a due reward." At least 3 people were awarded the badge of military merit. All of them men who had distinguished themselves by heroic deeds in service of the colonies. And all 3 of them, a spy and 2 war heroes, were non-commissioned officers. In a way, it was the Medal of Honor of the American Revolutionary War. The badge of military merit is officially recognized as the first American military decoration, although 2 years earlier, Continental Congress had created the Fidelity Medallion for the men involved in the capture of the British officer John Andre, who was executed as a spy. But since it had never been awarded again after that, it is officially seen as a one-time commemorative medal.
I was gonna say, yeah, if it was given to them because of the exact mission that they did was capturing the spy, then it's not like, oh, they did a feat where that feat can be unlocked again by another mission. It was like more like they got rewarded for the objective itself, not what they did during the objective. So, yeah.
Been awarded again after that, it is officially seen as a one-time commemorative medal. However, the Purple Heart might have shared the same fate as the Fidelity Medallion, and it fell into obscurity for quite some time. From the disbanding of the Continental Army in 1783 until the American Civil War in 1861, no official federal military decorations were awarded. Of course, during the Civil War and up to the end of World War I, there were several other awards created and dedicated to heroism and sacrifice, but the Purple Heart remained nearly forgotten. Soon after the euphoria over the 1918 victory in the First World War had subsided in the States, disgruntled veterans took to the streets, and a nationwide debate about veterans' compensation and military pensions began. Already in the 1920s, American generals were talking to Congress about reinstating the badge of military merit as a way of rewarding disgruntled or disillusioned veterans. But it was not until 1931, when the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birthday was around the corner, on February 22nd the following year, that none other than renowned World War I General Douglas MacArthur, who was Army Chief of Staff at the time, turned his words into action. Backed by and together with the Washington Commission of Fine Arts and the heraldry specialist Elizabeth Will, they created the modern Purple Heart. The medal, bearing the Washington family coat of arms, was not yet, however, primarily intended as a chevron for the wounded, but instead still seen as a combat decoration for those who had done great deeds under fire. MacArthur insisted that he himself be awarded the first Purple Heart for his World War I service. He had it engraved with the number 1.
That's kind of pompous, no? Can't award yourself. Well, I guess technically you can because he did, but damn.
For his World War I service. He had it engraved with the number 1. December 1942, a year into America's participation in the Second World War, President Franklin D. Roosevelt authorized the award for all branches of service by executive order. He declared that the decoration would also be retroactively awarded to those men and women that had died since America's entry into the war, beginning with the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. Among the first recipients was a woman, Lieutenant Annie Fox, who received it for her heroic actions in keeping a field hospital running during Pearl Harbor, saving many lives. By 1944, though...
Man, can you imagine the chaos? Just not only do you have the job of keeping this building afloat which is meant to help wounded people. You're constantly getting wounded people in there. The constant screaming of agony and constantly in pain. You can probably smell the what is it, the iron in people's blood? You can probably smell it in the air. God bless her.
During Pearl Harbor, saving many lives. By 1944, though, the purpose of the Purple Heart had changed. With the high casualties of the war, the Purple Heart became the official decoration for those members of the armed forces wounded or killed. To be eligible for the Purple Heart, a wound had to be received by the actions of an enemy that necessitates medical treatment by a medical officer. Now, the story could end here, but the identity of the Purple Heart is still changing and unfolding. In November 1952, President Harry Truman declared that the medal should be extended to those wounded or killed since April 6, 1917, the day of the U.S. entry into the First World War. And under President John F. Kennedy, there were several propositions brought forward that would open the Purple Heart to civilians wounded while working for the armed forces. This was later gradually limited by different editions of the yearly National Defense Authorization Act, which removed most civilian claims and restricted it back to the armed forces. Kennedy, by the way, is actually the only U.S. president who was awarded the Purple Heart, that for his service in the Second World War, as the commander of a torpedo boat near the Solomon Islands. His boat came under fire from a Japanese destroyer, and Kennedy injured his back, but still dove into the water to save his badly burned crew members. During Ronald Reagan's presidency, there was a growth of international terrorism, so in 1984, it was decided that the decoration would also be awarded to soldiers wounded in a terrorist attack, or while part of a peacekeeping mission. I should point out that during this era, the lines between combatants and non-combatants, and in some cases in parts of the world, between soldiers and terrorists began to blur.
I would say if you're representing your country and you're doing a service for the country, I mean, of course, this is just me talking. Like, of course, my opinion doesn't matter in this whole debate of who should get it or not. But depending on like what happened, if you went above and beyond, or even if they're saying like if you get hurt in one of these instances, if you're there and you know the danger, the risk that you're putting yourself in, and you choose to stay, to me that should be the baseline of who gets the award or who gets the medal and who doesn't.
That during this era, the lines between combatants and non-combatants, and in some cases in parts of the world, between soldiers and terrorists began to blur. Suddenly, the core principles of the Purple Heart were no longer as clear as they had been back in 1942. What defines an enemy attack? What is terrorism and what is simply a criminal act? And what is a wound exactly? Just a clear cut from shrapnel tearing through flesh? What about psychological wounds like PTSD? Are soldiers coming home with post-traumatic stress eligible for the Purple Heart? In 2009, the Pentagon decided.
What do you guys think? I would say so, yeah. I would definitely say so.
Not to award Purple Hearts to veterans. In 2009, the Pentagon decided not to award Purple Hearts to veterans with PTSD. Their reasoning is that the loss of a limb or a combat wound is permanent while PTSD is treatable. Whether or not you agree, and despite all those questions, the Purple Heart has taken its place as one of you agree, and despite all those questions, the Purple Heart has taken its place as one of the most prestigious and important decorations of the American military, ranking right behind the Bronze Star. And over the many decades, from its humble beginnings in 1782 to World War I, to the Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, the conflicts of post 9/11 and the War on Terror, over 1.8 million Purple Hearts have been awarded. The United States celebrates Purple Heart Day on August 7th, a day to acknowledge and remember the sacrifices made by those recipients, men and women, during their service. The Purple Heart.
Ooh, that gave me chills. Hearing the lyrics and then hearing like older footage.
Men and women during their service.
It's crazy how the lyrics match up to the video. Once we're these guys that we're seeing that are young right now are either unfortunately dead or they're old already. So that's what probably tripped me out. hearing the lyrics saying once we were young and it's showing them when they're young.
The Purple Heart is there to remind the nation what it takes to defend or to fight for your nation, and it is for the rest of that nation to acknowledge that. Purple Heart recipients are automatically eligible for medical care and the support of veteran associations, regardless of the severity of their injuries, the length of their service, or their income. They also receive higher priority access to medical care and other benefits, like paying less for medical bills.
They're supposed to. Everything they're saying is supposed to be, but I don't know. I don't know. We don't take care of the vets too well here, unfortunately.
Being preferred for college access or federal hiring, and even getting cheaper groceries. Many Purple Hearts have, however, been lost or been sold by veterans who hit hard times after their service. Some were simply stolen. There are still many descendants trying to fight for an ancestor's right for the Purple Heart. And documents are still being put together to fix the tattered narrative of the Purple Heart, as veterans call it. I'll end the history part of this episode with some food for thought. As the U.S. was preparing for Operation Downfall, the invasion of the Japanese mainland in 1945, American generals estimated it would cost them anywhere between 400,000 and 4 million casualties. So they began stockpiling Purple Hearts, up to 500,000 of them, until the plans for the invasion were called off. Those stockpiled Purple Hearts had been used ever since, but finally, 45 years later in 1990, the news broke that the American military was manufacturing new ones. This news reminded the American people that new conflicts were on the horizon, and that every one of those military conflicts fought with troops on the ground will result in casualties. Those casualties, the wounded and the dead, those are the recipients of the Purple Heart. Okay, you took one of your early songs, Night Child, and you rewrote it as Purple Heart.
Yeah, this is the time when Sabaton started to figure out what we are actually doing.
Right.
We were writing songs about, the Metalizer album. It doesn't really have any historical context to it.
No, it's got metal.
It's metal, but we didn't feel that it was right.
Okay.
So there we are, recording the album Primo Victoria. Yeah. And we really loved the song Night Child. It was recorded and it was a good song.
They're playing some of it right now.
We were like, okay, we're gonna do...
Oh, so is it still available? Did they change? Wait, I'm confused. I'll look into it.
Do an album completely about war history.
Yeah.
And Night Child doesn't belong there because it's just fiction and fantasy again. We decided, okay, let's rewrite it. To have something programmed in your mind that you have already played several times, and then you have to change it. We realized that it's tricky to rewrite something, but it was necessary.
Say about it. What were people? Maybe your friends' reaction or people that were already fans. What did they think of recycling a song?
Some people were disappointed because they were like, okay, so it's an old song, we already heard it, and now you do it like this. And even when we released Night Child a long time later as a bonus, then people also got upset.
Because they thought you had rewrote Purple Heart into Night Child? Oh, that's funny. Do you play it live as both, or is it only Purple Heart live? Or
we have never ever performed Night Child version live. Okay. We have only rehearsed it a lot of times and recorded it in the studio, but we played it live as Purple Heart.
But you haven't done that to any of your other songs, have you? Or?
We have not really rewritten anything else. This is a unique story for one song.
Are there maybe some songs that maybe you...
I'm surprised they didn't shelf the song, and just write another one. Or just make the album just a little, one track shorter, instead of rewriting the whole song.
Some of your earliest songs that were never released from 1999 or 2000, that maybe demo versions of them might come back and be Sabaton hits one day?
In theory, okay, so actually, no, I'm wrong here. The song that we talked about before, Saboteurs.
Oh yeah, Saboteurs.
This has, it was called Holy Lies in the beginning.
Yeah,
so,
said that, that's true.
that's it for today, but we see you next week here on Sabaton History Channel.
Okay, so that was interesting. Started with George Washington, had multiple ways to earn the Purple Heart. Crazy how it started with just like a little ribbon, literally, you know, a little cutout of a heart. Always fun to learn a little bit something about American history. So that was actually nice. Hope you guys enjoyed the reactions. I started to enjoy the video. Stay safe, stay blessed, and yeah, catch you guys in the next one.